Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and my pronouns are she, her.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies first and places. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and my pronouns are he, him.
And my name is Evan Crean. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living. My pronouns are he, him.
Yeah, they are. How are we going to, if your pronouns are last, how are we going to do yeah, yar?
Well, that's why they were supposed to be early, but I forgot to do it early.
Oh, well.
I messed us all up. It's all my fault. But hopefully that will be the only misstep this show. This evening. I don't know why I'm saying this evening. Probably because we're recording this evening. But you might be listening to us in the morning or the afternoon or at some other time. We are going to be talking about movies, as we always do. And this week, we're going to be talking about Cruella, Riders of Justice, Seance, and Skull the Mask. I'm not sure why that is so funny.
Well...
Or maybe I do know why.
Maybe you do. Maybe you have to.
I might. Well, we're actually going to be kicking the show off with, but actually before we kick the show off, I also want to let you all know that over on our Patreon, we discussed the winner of our monthly poll. It was our Star Wars poll, and the winner is Rogue One. So go check out our Patreon if you're a patron, and if you're not, consider joining so you can check out that great discussion that we had. Now, on to the show. We're going to start things off with Skull the Mask, a Brazilian horror film.
It's horrific, all right.
Yep.
I mean, this is one of those movies that, like, it should be a lot of fun, but it really isn't.
So you are so not wrong, Dave. Before we dive into that, I'm just going to give a very brief synopsis.
Sure.
That this is the mask, the skull that is a mask of the title is an artifact. It's a pre-Columbian artifact that belongs to a god who killed another god. Do I have that wrong? I very well probably do have that mistaken.
I mean, there was a bit in the middle about how the indigenous people made up this demon to scare away the Jesuits. So who knows?
Jesus, I missed that shit. God.
I only made it to about halfway point of this, so that very well also could be why I don't know. So thank you, Evan, for correcting me. But whomever wears this mask, they then are taken over by the spirit, by the demon, and then they go on a murder spree. And in order to stop, I love that you're so excited about that. And in order to stop the sacrifices, a cop and a museum worker must stop the demon.
Is it a museum worker?
Yeah.
I might have that wrong.
Yeah, I thought he was, I don't know what his deal was. He was like a merchant, like he worked in like a market or something.
But he also had this weird connection to the priest that's never really explained except in that photograph where they're both shown like, you know, they must have been in a militia or they were in a guerrilla group. They were guerrillas.
And there's a hand that gets severed in an opening scene in the movie and he just has it in his
himself.
possession. Yeah. So this is, in case you haven't figured out, listeners, this is a weird movie. I think my major issue is that it's tonally all over the place. Like it starts with like a very stylized like opening where you're seeing this weird,
it's almost like newsreel footage.
And all these people are like battling for this mask. Yeah, they're battling for the mask, and there's like weird fight scenes, and then there's a weird ritual to like activate this thing, and then like the mask.
Very Raiders of the Lost Ark, by the way.
Yeah, some dude puts it on and it just smashes, it explodes his head.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's my issue, is that it's totally is all over the place. I turned this off after 15 minutes because I was like, this is weird. I'm not in the mood for this. And then I had turned it on later and like came back to it like a day later. And it continued to just be all over the place. It ends up settling into something that I can best describe as like a angry indigenous version of Jason.
Yes, totally Friday the 13th.
It becomes a Friday the 13th movie because he's basically going around murdering people with a machete. And
I mean, that's amazing.
It even starts with this couple that's having sex. Like, he kills them in their car that are having, it's like, it feels straight out of Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I was going to say that we see the woman's boobs. They're literally still fucking and he's killing her and then killing him. Yeah, I was like, it's ticking all the horror trope boxes.
Yeah, I think I think what bothers me about this movie the most is, besides the fact that it can't decide whether it's a police procedural or a horror movie or a comedy, because some of it's supposed to be funny. And also the characters just do really fucking dumb things. Like, they find this mask. First of all, after the opening thing in 1944, when it's clearly like these two Nazis who are trying to use this for evil Third Reich purposes, how does the mask get reburied and then found in the archaeological site? And then why does the archaeologist bring it home instead of taking it to the museum? And why does her girlfriend decide she's going to dig it out and look up the ritual? And she's wearing a cross. She's a Catholic, I think. Why would she get into the...
She's not wearing a cross. She's wearing an ankh.
Oh, she's wearing an ankh. See, I was not paying attention because I was just kind of I was waiting for things to happen, because there are also big gaps in this movie where people are just kind of talking or stuff like that. But I'm glad, Evan, that you said it becomes like a Friday the 13th movie, because it also reminds me of Kane Hodder as Jason, very lumbering and, purposeful walking. And and just and also I don't know, I don't really know enough about indigenous Brazilian culture, but the whole idea just strikes me as kind of racist, which they sort of pay lip service to in the end when the cop kills the museum director. But I don't know.
Wait, which part feels racist? The whole thing?
Yeah, the whole idea that before the Colombians brought before Catholicism brought civilization to Brazil, they were just these people running around killing each other in the name of this god. It's just kind of that seems sort of ugly, but I don't know.
No, I'm actually glad that you mentioned that, because that was my reticence to watch this film in the first place. When I first heard about it, I was like, ugh, I don't want to watch some white people shit, some racist colonialist shit that's othering indigenous peoples. But then when I found out it was a Brazilian film, I was like, okay, well, it's not an American film, so that's good. But yeah, and I to be fair, I cannot speak to the latter half of the film, only the first half. But the premise, and from what I saw, definitely did not really appease any of my concerns on that front. So I totally understand what you're saying, Dave, and it was unsettling to me as well. But what I will say about the kind of 80s slasher throwback is that definitely is how it's described in the press notes description. And yeah, I definitely get those vibes. I think it's interesting that we see the POV shots from the mask's point of view, or POV shots from the mask's point of view. That's redundant. But we see that, and that's kind of sort of funny, sort of interesting. But the problem is when you're doing a throwback to 80s slashers, that's great and all, but you have to have, I feel, the sense of humor. And from what I saw, there was not really a sense of humor, which I think is speaking to what you guys are saying about the tonally jarring elements. It's really gory. It's got that down, but it's just not funny. And also, it's got some of the worst acting I've ever seen.
It's some pretty, the guy who plays the main cop's partner is so awful. Even though I don't speak Portuguese, I'm like, dude, you suck. Well,
the museum director is also terrible.
Yes, he really is.
Yeah, the archaeologist, was pretty terrible. I mean, she's not in it very long, but when she's clearly seeing the mask on the move, and she's not reacting very well. I was sad that the queer woman died, but yeah. But anyway, as a side note, but yeah, it's just, I feel like from what I saw, it was very tedious and I was bored, which is sad because I think it could have been, for me, much more interesting. But I don't know. Maybe it gets more interesting by the end. I don't know.
No, not really.
It doesn't. Spoiler, it doesn't.
I also wanted to say, just real quick, that I had said comedy, but I don't really mean that. What I mean is this movie takes itself way too fucking seriously to be fun.
Yes.
So
yes. But it also doesn't seem to be saying anything.
Correct. Yeah, it doesn't use the opportunity to say anything interesting. It's also, I agree, takes itself way too seriously. I think the only part that I enjoyed legitimately was and Megan, I don't think you got to the scene yet, but there's a scene where the priest fights the monster.
Yeah. Oh no, I did not get to that.
He pulls a samurai style katana out of a crucifix.
What?
Where like the arm of like Jesus's arm in the crucifix is the blade, and then like his hand is like the handle of the sword, and he has this like really intense fight scene with the monster, which I thought was actually the most entertaining and inspired thing in the movie.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was actually pretty fun. It reminded me a lot of I go back to Peter Jackson all the time, of the priest in Brain Dead. Or is it called Brain Dead, or what's the one where the Dead Alive?
Yeah, it's been. I think it's
said Dead
both.
Alive.
Well, you know what? It's called Dead Alive in the U.S. I think it's called Brain Dead in New Zealand.
You are correct.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. It reminded me of that, without being impaled on a statue, of course.
Yeah.
So that's how I felt about Skull the Mask.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should finish watching the movie before I share any more opinions, first of all. But second of all, I also, I would definitely want to hear more from people, from Indigenous people and, Brazilian people, like critics and just audiences, to see their perspectives on this. But yeah, this just felt kind of to me too.
Yeah.
Evan, did you have any final thoughts you wanted to share?
Oh, I think that was it. The fight scene with the priest and some of the fight scenes. Yeah, I think some of the fight scenes, there were a lot of hand-to-hand fight scenes that use like wrestling style moves, which I thought was a weird choice on their part.
Oh, well, there's a Brazilian wrestler in the cast.
That must make sense then.
Yeah. It is Rurik Jr. is a Brazilian wrestler.
Okay.
So that would probably be why, which makes sense.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, it doesn't unless you know that. All right. And I also wanted to mention that's Skull the Mask, and that is directed and written by Armando Fonseca and Capel Furman, and that is available on Shudder. All right, so let's talk about our next film, another horror film. Yay. Seance.
Boo.
Wow.
Oh boy. Sorry. Somebody else want to? I mean, that's my one word review.
So Seance is let's start things off first by but I loved the immediate reaction, Dave, as always. So Seance is directed and written by Simon Barrett, who also wrote You're Next and The Guest, as well as other things. It stars Suki Waterhouse, Madison Beatty, Inanna Sarkis, Ella Ray Smith, and a bunch of other people. And Suki Waterhouse stars as a young woman, a teen who is enrolled. She's been on a wait list for a private school, and there's an opening because a girl died, and she died because of a ghost, or maybe not. And there was a seance that her and her friends did. And so Suki Waterhouse shows up, and this clique of girls, they're very bullying, and they harass her, and they get into a fight, and then they all have detention. And more strange things happen, and more murders.
More seances.
More seances, more murders. And it descends from there.
Yeah.
So we know, Dave, what you thought.
Well, I didn't dislike it that much. I just thought that we were speaking about being tonally all over the place. Man, does this movie take that fucking award this week. Gah. Yeah.
Evan, what did you think?
Oh, I dug this movie. I'm a sucker for boarding school movies, first of all, which I think I've brought up on the show.
You have
before.
indeed.
Because you went to boarding school, right?
Yes. So like immediately you're going to get my attention based on that. This is like a weird kind of school, the vibe that's going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little weird, but I don't know. I enjoy the aspect of it. I enjoyed the fact that you've kind of got these dueling perspectives of like whether these killings are supernatural or whether they're not. Like it seems like for a while it's like, oh, it could be a ghost, could be a regular killer. And I like that the movie, there's supernatural elements that are happening. They aren't ultimately the cause of the murders. That's somebody doing it. But I like that there was also like, oh, there were also ghosts. They just weren't murdering people.
Yeah.
So I dug that.
Yeah. First, I'm just going to go, and this comes up with me over and over again. It's really, really distracting when people who are nearly 30 years old are playing 18-year-olds. I can't get past it. Suki Waterhouse is like 29. You know?
Is, yeah.
And also, her performance is super fucking flat in this movie.
Agreed.
I've seen her in other stuff, and she's been fine. Like nothing to, get really excited about. But in this, it's just kind of, it's really like, it's like a monotone performance. It's very bizarre. But some of the things I do like, on the other hand, I liked how much like weird that a lot of these girls kind of seem to know martial arts without anybody explaining why they know martial arts.
That's a very your next thing, I feel, in a way. Although actually I take that back because they do explain why the protagonist knows so much martial arts. But anyway, but you're right.
And I appreciated that sort of stuff. And there was some humor in it that I liked. But unlike Evan, I figured out actually, you may have figured this out, but I didn't know it was two killers, but I knew that someone was killing them and not a ghost, because it just, generally speaking, ghosts in movies don't run up to you and slash you when you're like at dance practice. And you hear their footsteps really loudly,
Right.
Although that is pretty late in the film.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Yeah. But I mean, they get more obvious as they go along. And then
yes, that's true.
When the redhead, whose name escapes me, the one who's actually the killer, or one of the killers, she gets attacked by the ghost in her room, but then she scares the ghost off. And then Suki Waterhouse just goes and says, "That's weird that the ghost would get scared off." And I was like, yeah, I was thinking that too. Why would a ghost be scared? And so, and then of course there's the headmaster's son. And, the moment that guy shows up on screen, just because we've seen horror movies before, it's like, why is this random character? Why is the son of the headmaster living here and working as the handyman? I saw Malice with Alec Baldwin and Nicole Kidman. So...
Filmed in Western Mass.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It always cracks me up that it was filmed at Smith College. But anyway, yeah. So you guys liked it a lot more than I did. I did not like this. I was very disappointed. I was really sad about it. I thought a lot of the acting was really bad. I agree with you, Dave, that Suki Waterhouse is very flat. And I was kind of surprised. I know that the clique of girls is grieving the death of their friend. So, and Helen, one of the other girls, Camille, who's Suki Waterhouse, she becomes Camille's friend. And she's like, oh, I would apologize for them. They're going through a lot because of, the death of, I think Carly is her name. And she's like, yeah, but they really always were bad. They're just worse now. And I know that they're grieving and all of that, but I don't really give a shit about bullies. And you have to make me care about them. Like, there has to be a reason why we're following. The majority of the people we're following in this film are bullies and doing shitty things. And this film does not make me care about any of them. Like, I found Helen marginally interesting, and she was probably pretty much it. And that's unfortunate. I didn't think this was sharply written, and it's not nearly as well written or compelling or fast-paced or well acted as You're Next. And I know that's kind of unfair to keep comparing to a previous film that someone wrote, but also at the same time, it is their body of work, and it's hard not to when Your Next is so amazing and it's just so damn good. It's also really surprising to me that Kareem Hussein is the DP on this, and when his work is when his work is so incredible in Possessor, it's good in Random Acts of Violence as well as many other films, and it is just nothing special here. It's really unfortunate and such a disappointment. And I feel like that should be really where you excel in a horror film, is the cinematography and the editing. And yeah, that just is not the case here. I also thought there was a lot of illogical choices like you were talking about, Dave, with Camille. I was like, oh yeah, that's weird. And I also absolutely despise when villains confess everything. It's so fucking Scooby-Doo, and I can't stand it. And it sucks. Yeah, it does. It sucks. It's beneath the audience. It's demeaning. There is a way to weave in the answers so an audience will feel satisfied without just doing an exposition dump. And it was so annoying.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I liked about this film, I mean, this isn't like a terrible film. I mean, I just really did not enjoy it. But we get a lot of queer hints throughout the film between Camille and Helen. And I mean, it's kind of frustrating that we don't get really anything happening until the very, very end. But I guess at least we get something. At least we get a kiss. So I don't know.
Well, and also, yes, there's the kiss, and Helena, I think it's Helena.
Is it Helena? Have I been saying Helen the whole time?
It's okay.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
Fear not.
It is Helena.
The whole time they're like chummy and, sort of maybe have a like budding romance going on. But then...
Yeah, they're touchy.
Yeah, but then Camille kills a bunch of people and Helen is like, how will I find you? And it's like, the reason for her killings, you could argue, are quite righteous, but at the same time, gross. So...
Yeah, I mean, and this was... I mean, especially with Trevor, this was premeditated. Like she says, like, I have a debt to pay. And that's why she was, pretending to be another student so she could sneak her way into this school. And so, yeah, maybe Bethany, I think, is the name of the girl who is the other co-killer. Yeah. And like, so that makes sense that she would kind of just kill her, just kind of because. But then she says to her, you killed my friend. And I was like, wait, what? Did she have something to do with the other one? I thought it was just Trevor. And yeah, so Trevor is clearly premeditated. And by the way, sweet decapitation. I will say that.
Oh yeah, I dug that.
I
dug
great.
The brutality of the fight scenes, especially all that stuff in the like library basement or wherever it was that they were duking it out.
Oh yeah, that was great.
When she pulled down that light and used it to electrocute Bethany, I thought that was badass.
That was pretty cool.
No, that was good. Yeah, no, I agree with you. The fight scenes were good and the murders were really well done.
But I agree with both of you that like the strength is definitely, I mean, it's a problem when the villain confesses to everything. I mean, not only does that suck because you're not trusting the audience to like pick up on things, but in this case, it just exposes all of the weaknesses of the writing, which it does in this. Like, it makes no sense that Bethany was plagiarizing, and that's why she started murdering all these people. Like,
she was already an A student.
So flimsy,
right? Yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
that's my biggest complaint about the movie is that exposition dump / the killer's motivations making zero sense to me.
Yeah. I think I would like this potentially a lot more if those were fixed.
Yeah, if they had found out organically that Bethany had like stolen this thing,
Yeah.
Because Bethany even says, I knew that if any of them had read it, they would have known immediately that I plagiarized it from Carrie. Then, you could have a thing where, okay, maybe Camille is the only one who finds, and because she knows Carrie, she could be like, wait a minute, I was with Carrie when this thing happened. Why is this in Bethany's essay? There you go.
Yep.
Problem solved.
That would have been great.
This would have been a great thing for Dr. Chris, script doctor, or whatever his bit used to be. But yeah, just I agree with you both. Just the ending is just weak. I really wish there had actually been more ghost stuff because
me too.
And I don't think it's unfair to compare it to Your Next or some of the other stuff that Simon Barrett has written, which is a lot better. I think part of the problem here is the screenplay is just not very good. I think there are too many ideas and not enough time to spend on them. But I also think, if this is a directorial debut, which I think it is, there's got to be some space to like learn stuff, but there's some pretty crummy choices in this. So
yeah,
like just the mask thing over and over. Every time the masks showed up, I was like, can we fucking be done with the masks? Come on. Or at least use the weird animal masks like you did in Your Next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a fan of those.
I don't know. See, I do like the weird animal masks from a visual standpoint. I like those far better. But I kind of liked that they were using the no masks and talking, in the class. I mean, it's a little too on the nose, but I like how, the teacher's talking about how women couldn't portray female characters. They were only portrayed by male actors. So yeah, I kind of liked that it feels kind of like this reclamation, gender-wise, sort of. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, for me, it's kind of like too little too late. Like, yeah, like, okay, that's fine, but it's not enough to compensate for other issues in the film.
Yeah.
Evan, did you have any, actually, and Dave too, did either of you have any last thoughts?
Nope, I'm all set.
The one other thing I wanted to say was I really dug the score. I thought the score was really
I liked the score too, but I also think that it popped up in some very inappropriate places. But that being said...
Thank you. I thought that too.
But that being said, I thought the music itself was good.
Yes.
Yeah. And I liked that there were times where music we thought was the movie's music was actually environmental music.
Yes.
Like on the speaker or in the girl's headphones. Like she took them off and I was like, wait, that's what she's listening to, not what we're listening to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was very cool. Yeah. So Seance is in theaters right now. I think it's also on VOD, and it will be released on Shudder later this year.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's move on to our next film, Riders of Justice. Evan, I know you saw this at IFF Boston recently, and this is a Danish film. It is directed and written by Anders Thomas Jensen, and it stars Mads Mikkelsen. It's a Mads Mikkelsen double feature.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Yes, because we talked about Rogue One in the bonus episode. And so, of course, nice timing on this.
Absolutely. I know, we didn't even plan it. This film is, I'm trying to think of how to encapsulate it very succinctly.
The way it was described to me was Taken, but with the lone gunman from X-Files, which I thought was what enticed me to see the movie. And I know that's not an entirely accurate description, but I like the nerdy characters in this movie.
Yeah, well, let's back up.
They very much are lone gunmen.
Yes, I was like, let's back up so we can give the plot summary. But yes, I agree with you. And actually, the lone gunman facet is what would sell me too. And I love Taken, but yeah, the thing of it is I thought this was going to be like Taken, and it's not. It's really, I mean, it is, but it's not. Anyway, we'll get into it. But yes, so Mads Mikkelsen plays Marcus. He is a soldier. He is deployed. His daughter and his wife are on a subway train, and there is a tragic accident that kills her along with other people too. I think like 10 other people. And there is a gentleman who is on that train, and he is convinced that a motorcycle gang member's brother orchestrated it because the gang member is on trial and there was a witness, and he's convinced that it is related to that. And he is an analyst, and he looks at statistics along with his two colleagues, and the three guys all go to Marcus's house and convince him that these two brothers are in on this, and Marcus decides he's going to take revenge.
Yes, and we should add that the motorcycle gang is called the Riders of Justice.
Yes.
And that's actually about as succinct as you can make a movie that has so much going on.
So much.
Yeah.
For the most part, I really dug this.
The most part?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were some things that just, worked better than others, but...
Yeah, it was a little slow in a couple places, but overall, I really enjoyed this. I mean, I think I posted something like, it's got something for everybody. It's got like Mads Mikkelsen. It's got action. It's got like discussions of like faith and trauma. It's like, you're not expecting it from this kind of movie. On the surface, you're thinking, okay, this is like an action movie. Maybe it's gonna be kind of brutal. Maybe we'll get like a little like father-daughter relationship thing. It goes so many places that you're not expecting. At least I wasn't expecting going into it, and was pleasantly surprised by.
Oh, completely. I absolutely love this, and I love that it is all about trauma, and it is all about how people deal with trauma or don't deal with trauma in the case of Marcus, and it's all about vengeance and how vengeance doesn't satisfy. And this is such a deep film, considering that you think it is going to be like Taken, and it is so much deeper and so much better and really darkly funny. And I love the camaraderie between all of them and how they keep kind of bringing more people in. And like the boyfriend of not the boyfriend, but he's a sex worker of one of the gang members' brothers. Anyway, it's great.
Yeah, and I also like that. And they drop a hint that this is going to happen, but I just kind of glossed over it. They use facial recognition software to try to determine whether the train accident that kills Mads Mikkelsen's wife and the guy who's going to testify against the Riders of Justice to figure out whether it was an accident or whether it was planned. And based on the facial recognition, them lowering the standards, they discover who they think did it. And then it turns out they're wrong.
Yep.
Everything was just completely fucking random.
Which is so nuts. I love that.
And they've just gone and killed dozens of people for absolutely no reason.
Well, I also, it's such a scathing condemnation of facial recognition software too, which I kind of love because it's kind of gross in many ways. But yeah, and it is so, like, it's so brutal that all these awful things that have happened. And, Mads Mikkelsen is just killing people left and right. And I mean, the other guys start killing people too. And it's brutal. And it's great though. Like the action sequences are really well done. They're really quick, but they're really well done. But yeah, and then the gut punch of them all is you find out, oh yeah, by the way, we were all wrong. It was an accident. Whoops.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny when at the end, the Riders of Justice, the gang shows up to kill Mads Mikkelsen and everybody. And he was like, there's a shootout. And the lead guy for the gang's like, we didn't do anything to you. Why are you doing this? And it's so funny to hear a criminal like lamenting, like, I didn't do anything. And this is my fault. I don't know why you're hurting my feelings, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved that this is a band. I love that. I love that this is a band of misfits coming together, which is so in my sweet spot. And they're so strange, but they're all suffering from pain and trauma. And I love that Otto tells Marcus that people with problems kind of band together to make it easier to exist, which is kind of such a sweet yet gutting statement. And I love that Marcus and Matilda, his daughter, have this really estranged relationship because he would just continuously get redeployed. And he doesn't know his daughter at all. And that's really interesting, seeing them kind of reconnect and her being, resistant to that, understandably so. And I have to say, I mean, Mads Mikkelsen is always so intense. And I love that about him, that he is always just searing intensity in every single role, no matter what it is. And which is so great. And I want to see him in more action roles. Like, I clearly need to see him because he looks so fucking competent and so great. Like, I truly believe he could absolutely snap a person's neck in like 10 seconds. And
oh my God, when he does that.
Yeah, it's great. But the other thing that just breaks my heart and is also a really intense scene is when he finds out that this was all a mistake, all, misjudgment, that it was all random. And he's staring at himself in the mirror, and then he bashes his head in the mirror and shatters it, and Jen just keeps punching it and then just destroys the bathroom. And then he just breaks down and cries. That's such a moving scene because he doesn't know what to do with his pain other than to resort to violence. And when he doesn't have that, he doesn't know what to do with himself. And it's just, it's so sad. And I think it's also a really interesting depiction of, toxic masculinity and how men are not allowed to really have emotions that are tender and vulnerable. And it's doing so many things here. And I love that.
Yeah, and I love the way it approaches the, like, initially this idea of like statistics and mathematics and like trying to use that to predict things or to dissect situations, and then like that collides with like the idea of like faith and like processing trauma and like is there an afterlife? And I love that all kind of like comes together in a way for these characters to kind of like work through these issues. And like when they do figure out like, oh, this shit is all random, like I think they find a weird kind of peace in that, like they're never gonna understand why bad things happen to people, but they can like kind of understand that these things just happen because they do. But by being friends and by being together, they can deal with them or they can process them. And that's why it just cracks me up that the ending scene of the movie is all of them sitting down at Christmas and opening presents.
I love it.
And like,
I love
they're
it.
all wearing the like cheesy Christmas sweaters,
Ugly
like
Christmas
Mads Mikkelsen.
sweaters.
Yeah. And then they give Emmenthaler, they give him his French horn that he talked about playing growing up and was like sad that he couldn't play. I just thought that was a hilarious way to end the movie.
But he does play.
Yeah, he does play. And then Matilda gets the red bike that the
Yep.
There's a thing in the beginning which sets up the whole consequence. The notion of consequences is very big in this movie too. You know, how one act predetermines another. And there's a little girl and an old man. I guess it's her grandfather. I don't know. She's like, she wants a bike for Christmas. Her grandfather says, how about this red one? She's like, nah, I want it in blue. So Matilda's bike gets stolen. And then that's how.
Yeah, which is why she's on the train with her mom instead of not.
Right. And then Otto gives up his seat. So her mother sits down and he survives, but she doesn't. And if he'd been sitting down, he wouldn't have survived.
Right.
Yeah.
And I also appreciated, I just want to say this, when they're first doing the facial recognition software, what's the guy's name? Bart Hammer or Barth Mueller?
Emmenthaler. Yeah. Who calls people cunt dicks, by the way, which I think is hilarious.
Emmenthaler has like got the ratio for facial recognition software set to something like 98.4 or 99.4%. And they're like, we're never going to find someone because it just takes them to people in the Middle East. It's like, why do you think everything's about terrorism? Blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the movie, you find out that the guy who is sitting in the seat, who they, who was presumed to have planted a bomb or whatever, he wasn't Middle Eastern, he was from Northern Africa, he's from Egypt, and but he threw out this, his food because he hated it, not because he was like trying to stage a diversion or whatever. And he's telling his family, oh, my trip to Denmark was all right, but I had the sandwich that was terrible, you wouldn't believe it, and then this orange juice just tasted like garbage, so I threw it out, and I can't believe I spent all that money on that food that I didn't eat. I was just like, this is amazing, I fucking love this.
Right, because that was one of the things is that Otto saw him do that, and he's like, well, who would throw out a perfectly good sandwich and a full juice?
That's 14 euros so that guy threw out. That's ridiculous.
He's like, that somebody wouldn't throw out that much money worth of food. Like you would if you hated it. Yeah. No, I agree with what you guys are saying. I love this, and I love so many things about this, but I was really surprised at how emotional it made me. Like, I cried a lot through this film. And I think that that's great. And I mean, they're like the traumatizing things that we learn about the other characters, like, oh my God, like being molested as a kid, accidentally killing your daughter in a drunk driving accident. Like, these things are terrible. Like, they're so tragic and awful. But like you said, Evan, they all could come together, and that is really, really sweet and tender. And I keep thinking about Mads Mikkelsen, and I needed him in more action roles because he's so confident and assured. It's just great.
Have you seen Arctic?
No, but I want to because I love a survival film.
It's a survival film, and he is the movie. So
yes, I know.
Yeah.
That's why I need to see it. I'm so glad that you're saying that because that's actually been at the top of my list for a little bit now. So yes, no, I definitely will see that because it's all my boxes.
Cool.
But yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you both got a chance to see it.
Me too.
Because I saw it at the Independent Film Festival of Boston, as you mentioned. And so I was like, I really like this. And I'm really curious to hear what Megan and Dave think about it. So I'm glad that you both got a chance to watch it. And also that you both liked it.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've shared this probably many times, but it's rare that I laugh out loud at films. And I mean, I can appreciate them or find them amusing, but when they're comedic, but this had me like laughing out loud. I think this is so funny, but so tender, but so visceral too. And the thing of it is that I love a revenge film, but my issue with most revenge films is that they don't really deal with the issue of revenge. They definitely gloss over it. They gloss over the trauma and the pain, and they just get to the killings, which is fine sometimes. Sometimes you just want to see Taken, you just want to see some fun killings. But I love that this is doing something deeper and doing something different and really looking into vengeance and how it does not satisfy, even if it is kind of, satisfying to watch as an audience. It's not actually satisfying from a personal perspective. But anyway, I love that. It's a subversive way of looking at revenge in film, and I love that.
Yeah, this is a very smart movie.
Yes, very smart, very well written, very well acted. Yeah,
I can't wait for the inevitable terrible American remake.
Oh my God, you're so right.
This is the kind of movie that people be like, we gotta fucking remake this.
Let's remove all the subtlety from it.
Yeah, they will, and it'll be awful. But yeah, did you guys have any final thoughts that you wanted to share?
No, I'm good.
Mm-mm. Yeah, me too.
All right. So Riders of Justice is, I think, in theaters and VOD now. I know it's been released. It was released right after IFF Boston. So get out. And let's talk about our final film, Cruella, the Disney film that is the origin story of the iconic villain, Cruella de Vil, from 101 Dalmatians. Starring Emma Stone, Emma Thompson, directed by Craig Gillespie.
Yeah. Answering the question that no one asked, how do you make a woman who wants to sew puppies into coats sympathetic? So, one of you, please go ahead.
Well, that was, no, but I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, that was my issue with, I didn't really want to see the film because of that. Because I'm like, I don't give a shit about a puppy murderer. And I still kind of feel that way. Having said that, though, I think this is doing some interesting things. But I will share what I think in a moment. I want to hear what you think, Evan.
Well, as we were trading texts, talking about the film earlier, I really despised the first 15 to 20 minutes of this movie, which is heavy voiceover and
exposition.
Seeing Cruella as a child. Yeah, exposition, learning about Estella, her nickname was Cruella, her alter ego, her bad alter ego when she was a kid. Once we get past that, I really started to enjoy this movie. I don't know, there's an energy to it. I enjoy the frenetic use of music and lots of entertaining music. I think there are times where for me it gets a little too frenetic when it's kind of breakneck switching between these weird cutaway asides with 30 seconds of music or less back to some other song. But I have to admit, I really did enjoy the rest of the movie quite a bit, and it did hold my attention, even if I don't necessarily care that much about this specific character. I liked the cast. I thought the movie was well cast, and I think for me, the performances were good enough to hold together something that might have not been so strong otherwise.
Dave, before I launch into what I think, what do you think?
I think it's largely dog shit, but
yikes. Pun intended.
Yes, actually, I did plan that out. That is one of my favorite phrases, but in this case, it works quite well. For all of the good things that happen, and when I say good things, I mean, whether it's a screenplay thing or a costume design thing or whatever, there are 4 bad things that happen along with it. So my big problem, and I think you're probably going to take issue with this, is I really just feel like Emma Stone is the wrong fucking choice for this. Just, it's the performance. Her performance is so I mean, lots of the performances are mannered. Don't get me wrong. But her performance is so mannered, and so she's acting. You know what I mean? It's just the whole time she's acting. And Emma Thompson, for that matter, is acting too, but she's just so much better. But I also sort of reject the premise, the whole idea that Cruella's that Emma Thompson is, an evil narcissist and Cruella's actually her, daughter, and just it's so convoluted and at the same time kind of predictable. And what was really strange is if Joel Fry, who's one of Cruella's henchman friends, I don't know what you would call him. He's sort of a friend. He was a street kid too.
They're her family.
Yeah, right. His performance is so natural and just.
He's a really natural actor.
He really is. And then most of the other people around him are just cranked up to 11. he's just like,
he does really stand out that way. You're right about that.
And some of it's appropriate. Like, I feel like the costume designer, the shop owner that Cruella hires, that's his character. He's flamboyant and he wears makeup and he's got bright blonde hair. And then you've got the other henchman who's in Cruella's family, who's, you know, like a Cockney guy who's got a dog with one eye and har, isn't that funny? But then
I thought it was.
Yeah. I mean, he was, he's fine. I still prefer him in I, Tonya, but it's just
great film.
Yeah. I really found the lengths that the screenwriters and Disney went to make someone who in the movie who was more cruel than Cruella de Vil really distasteful. And Emma Thompson's character is so blisteringly evil that it's kind of unpleasant, you know? And even though she's correct, you know, especially in like the late 60s, early 70s when this takes place, which by the way, there are a whole lot of songs that happen on this soundtrack that weren't in existence yet, but that's okay.
Oh, the needle drops are a problem.
Yeah. I mean, and some really great songs just completely misused.
Yes. Or two on the nose.
Or two on the nose. Yeah. But anyway, when, you know, Emma Thompson has this one moment where she's having lunch with Cruella Estella and she says, you can't care about anybody else if you know, want to make it, you know, especially because, you know, no one gives a shit about women. And that's all true. But at the same time, she's fucking evil. So.
Well, that is true.
It's just kind of a strange set of messages. I mean, it's really kind of bizarre that Maleficent, the first one, an equally unredeemable character, is redeemed so well. And in this movie, it's just like Cruella, yes, all of these horrible things happened to her, but at the same time, she's also horrible. So I don't know. It just was like, and also this movie looks like shit. So there's that too.
Okay.
Just looks dingy and gross.
Okay.
Megan?
I've been like dying.
You asked me to go.
No, I know. Because, well, you know, I mean, I could have just gone, but you know, when you're the host, you take a back seat.
Sure.
But oh man, did I not want to take a back seat on this? So I actually liked this film, and I could not disagree more, Dave, with your comments on the acting. I think Emma Stone is fantastic here. I love that she's scenery chewing here. I think it fits because it's a kind of constructed character. So it fits that she feels very mannered and constructed. I love how Emma Stone and Emma Thompson are relishing their villainous roles. There are not enough really good villain roles for women. And I love that they're both doing, I think, a great job here. I think Emma Stone is camping it up. Emma Thompson is channeling Meryl Streep's Miranda Priestley in Devil Wears Prada, although Meryl Streep's is much better. And I think the reason why she's so much better is because she's much more complex and much more subtle in her villainous role. And we see more vulnerability, which is something that's completely lacking in Emma Thompson's Baroness. And that's okay. Not all characters need, especially female characters, don't need to convey vulnerability. But you do have to make an audience care about them. And at least for me personally, I gravitate towards characters that are layered and nuanced and complex and have some form of vulnerability. Even if they don't show other characters, we as an audience see it. And we don't get that from Baroness. We get that from Cruella a lot, but not from her. Yeah, I will say that, you know, Cruella has a scene where she's saying goodbye to her mother. And I actually kind of found that a moving scene. Although I will say that it was really annoying to me that she keeps continuously throughout the film telling us how she's a genius. And yet she's very artistically creative. I don't see her being a genius unless she's talking about her artistry, I guess. But at the same time, I don't know. There was something about it that kind of, but then if she is a narcissist, then she would be talking about herself that way. But it did feel way too convenient that she's the Baroness's daughter. And I did not like that. I agree with you, Dave, on that. I think that's completely unnecessary. And it was too convenient and did not need to be in there. I will say another frustrating thing, and this just adds to the Baroness's, you know, evil ways, is that she steals all of her great costumes, beautiful costume ideas from her employees, which is very different than an actual head of a designer house, the head of an actual designer who is designing themselves, but that's a sidebar. But I will say my favorite thing about the film, and this should not be a surprise to anyone who knows my love of fashion, is the fashion. I think the fashion is stunning and exquisite. Jenny Beavan, who is the costume designer who also did Fury Road and Sense and Sensibility and many, many other films, I think she absolutely nails the fashion. It's exquisite and decadent eye candy. I love that Cruella's look is very punk chic, a la Vivienne Westwood and Alexander McQueen. I love the long train of the trash dresses, with Cruella having a newspaper sash that's very reminiscent of a Dior dress that's seen in Sex and the City. I love the red tulle with the long skirt and the black military jacket. I love all the structured suits and dresses that Emma Thompson wears. I think it's all gorgeous. And I think what's kind of mind-blowing is that in an interview with Vanity Fair, Jenny Beavan talked about it, and Emma Thompson had 33 costumes and Emma Stone had approximately 70 costumes, not to mention all of the other people, all of the other secondary characters and other people in the background. But I think what's really interesting is that Jenny Beavan said that fashion is a weapon in Cruella and that she uses it as, quote, warfare to get vengeance. And I think that's a really interesting idea. And that her favorite costume was actually the dog Wink's rat costume, which I kind of love. I love that.
That's a funny costume.
Right? But I love that that's her favorite costume.
Megan, real quick,
yeah.
I am going to agree with you that the fashion design, etc., is gorgeous in this movie.
Oh, good.
But but I thought the photography was really, really just. I loved.
See, I liked the cinematography. I did.
Yeah, but I did like the trash can dress too, or the trash truck dress when she fell out of the garbage truck. I was actually like, that's pretty cool. That's actually a pretty cool and ballsy thing, because you could probably die doing that if you did it the wrong way.
Right. Well, I mean, but that's not the first time she does something dangerous with the dress. Like the first time is when she lights herself on fire and then the dress, vanishes and it's the red dress underneath a black and white one. Yeah. There's a lot of show-stopping moments fashion-wise in this. And that's the thing, when you have a film where your character is a fashion designer working at the most famous, in the world of the film, fashion house, you want some good fashion. I mean, I always want good fashion, period. But especially in a film about fashion, you want actual fashion that feels real, that feels of the time, that feels also innovative and creative and daring. And I feel like it does all of that.
Well.
Yeah.
So you liked it.
I did, because I'm going to say it, a big part of it is the visual benefit, the fashion, I think. But the thing of it is with the fashion is it's beautiful in and of itself, but I think it also helps tell the story so well, as any good costume design should. Oh, sure. And it does.
I agree with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting because we're talking about the music and how I think the music, some of it is good, but a lot of it's very problematic. It's kind of too much. And I think it detracts from the story, whereas I think the fashion really enhances the story in such a great way.
Yeah, I want to talk about the music just briefly.
Oh, yes.
I was, the pop songs or top 40 songs or whatever you want to call them that they use, generally speaking, are so on the nose. But when they break out 5 to 1 by the Doors, I was like, I hear it. And if you know that song at all, you know it immediately. 1, no other band has ever sounded like the Doors. But 2, that song is like one of the dun, 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 this kind of guttural. And in that moment, it works. But then I was thinking, wait a minute, are we going to get to the lyrics, which will definitely have nothing to do with what's going on around us? And then they did. And I was like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just re-edit it so it stayed the music? Or you could go and then you could cut to the instrumental part. I mean, there are ways we can do this with Pro Tools these days where the edits would be seamless and it would work a lot better. And I felt like there was a lot of that stuff. Like Blondie's One Way or Another, please, can we never use that again in a movie? In any movie, even if it's appropriate. Can we not use, ELO? Can we not use Stone Cold Crazy by Queen? I mean, it's just, these songs are so iconic that they're distracting, I think.
When you're using them in the number of all the other iconic songs, I agree with you. It's very, if you just use 1 or 2 of them, I don't think it would be so bad. But when you're using like all these iconic songs, it does feel very distracting.
Yeah, by the time they got to I Want to Be Your Dog, which was a good use of I Want to Be Your Dog.
That was a good use.
I was just kind of like over it, I was just like, all right, come on.
That's fair. That is fair.
I think the most on the nose usage was Sympathy for the Devil, which I could do without hearing in another movie ever again.
For sure.
Agreed. And I like that song a lot.
It's such a great song.
Me too.
It is a great song.
But it's been in so many movies that it's just like, I don't even really want to hear it anymore. When I was a kid, when they get to the hoo-hoo part each time, it made me so happy. And now I'm just like, Sympathy for the Devil again. How do you ruin early Rolling Stones? But they've done it.
Something else I want to say about this was a tweet I saw from Screen Queens, and this was a tweet about their review of Cruella, and it talked about how this could have been a really interesting commentary on women in power and cruelty. And I agree so much with that. I just wish it had delved more into that. I liked the acting, and I think there's something there kind of interesting with these characters and their interplay and their discourse and their vying for control of power and dominance. But I wish it had kind of delved into that a bit more. But yeah, and I do like that this film, even though there are definite nods, especially in the mid-credits scene, definite nods to the original 101 Dalmatians. I like that it's making its own film. And this is very different. This is very different from what I remember of the Glenn Close 101 Dalmatians 2, the Disney animated film, which is great. But, Dave, I keep coming back to what you said. At the end of the day, do I really care about the origin story of a puppy murderer?
Yeah. Especially, in the mid-credit sequence when she gives the two dogs to two characters. Yeah. And it's like, wait a minute. What? What's going on here?
Right. And it's weird. And it's like, and they made the Baroness's Dalmatians hyper aggressive, and it's like, I don't care. And eventually later Cruella tames them, and then they become loyal to her. But I don't care how aggressive you make Dalmatians. It's not going to make me think it's okay that she wanted to murder them later.
Yeah, and also Dalmatians are not aggressive by nature, so that's weird too.
No. They are not. Right. Exactly. Although this is not the first, I can't remember what the other one is, but this is not the first time I've seen a filmic depiction of aggressive Dalmatians, which is strange because if you know dogs, you know that they're not typically that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also not comfortable with dog napping as like a vengeance thing, but it is interesting to see how as a girl, she's so like lovable with dogs. Like she has her dog, and then Wink is around. And by the way, Wink is the greatest. I think Wink is a scene stealer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that they use their dogs to do crimes.
Yes!
I thought that was like a really great.
Yeah.
And to me, a lot of the oomph from the story was starting to see them as they grew up using their dogs to commit all of these like scams and schemes.
No, that was great. I also think, speaking of the dogs doing the work, I also think there's something really sweet and sad when Baroness lights Cruella's house on fire, or her loft apartment on fire, and then the dogs are trying to set her free. And I'm like, oh, the dogs.
Yeah.
They're trying to save her.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. So,
you're welcome.
Because that's the scene when Mark Strong saves Cruella and says, by the way, the Baroness is your mother. And so,
oh my God, it's ridiculous.
Mark Strong is in the movie very early on, and you're looking at him and you're thinking, why is Mark Strong in this movie? When is this going to come into play? Because I've read all of Roger Ebert's books and I've seen a lot of movies. And when you have a major fucking actor like Mark Strong in a seemingly really tiny role, he's going to be important later. So I was also just distracted by that. Like, when is Mark Strong going to like turn out to be some kind of fucking guy? And then he is the guy. He's like, oh, by the way, first, I saved your life. Second, you're her daughter. Third, I'm on your team now. So,
Very true. Before we wrap up, there's two tweets I want to talk about. One is directly to us, which is exciting.
Uh-oh.
And it's good. But one of them is Robert Daniels, who's a great film critic. And he talked about how he is really annoyed and frustrated that Black women in film and TV are perpetually the friends of genius white women, and they're sidelined, like in The Queen's Gambit and here in Cruella. And I agree with him. And I think that that's very much worth saying. And Kirby Howell-Baptiste, who plays Anita, Cruella's childhood friend, is so great. She's such a great actress and such a waste of her hair. And it's very unfortunate because, yeah, I'm also agree that it's a problem that she's sidelined for various reasons. Yeah. And then the tweet that was to us is from Cash Grab Cinema. And they say, my question is, does Cruella miss the mark? I haven't watched it yet, but it seems to be more fashion than film. I hope I'm wrong because I love the character of Cruella. So I pose it to you guys. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. If you know anything about the way movies work, at some point, Disney's going to lose the rights to 101 Dalmatians, which is why, I mean, there's probably, somebody years ago was like, we should really do movies about like Cruella and shit. That would be cool. But a lot of this stuff is like to protect copyright. It's the same reason that, they release, demo versions of Bob Dylan songs. It's because Columbia is going to lose the copyright on the original recording because it's been, 28 years and they renewed it and now they're out of time. And so I think
why we get a million Spider-Mans.
Yeah, I think that's exactly why we get Spider-Mans, because Sony doesn't want the clock to run out, Yep. And I think that there is a big element to this. I also think, though, that if you can do them the right way, and let's go back to Maleficent, if you can do that kind of thing in a way that is interesting or unique or brings a fresh perspective to it, sure. But unlike you two, this just didn't work for me. And I don't know, I wouldn't call it shameless, but it's certainly a cash grab. I mean, but this movie also has a $200 million budget and God knows how many millions marketing. So it's going to take some serious box office success to earn some money from this. But, I'm sure with all the tie-ins and that other stuff that'll go on with it, it'll be just fine in the end.
So I was like, definitely you think it missed the mark and probably that it's more fashion than film? Yes.
Yeah, more fashion than film. I mean, it's just, it's all artifice. So, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, filmmakers do that and make good movies.
Very true. Evan, what do you think?
I didn't think this missed the mark. I thought this was a really entertaining movie. I think parts of it don't work that well. But overall, I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed this movie. I went in with such low expectations as to like what I was going to see. And I was shocked that I was like really into the story and what was happening. And I didn't think it was just, what was it? What was the sentence?
They asked if
fashion over film.
They asked if it missed the mark and if it was more fashion than film.
No, I didn't think so. I think this mostly hit for me. Some stuff that didn't work, but mostly hit. And yeah, I think there is something here that's entertaining. That's not just visual eye candy.
That's what I said.
Yeah. Evan, surprising me each week.
I don't think it missed the mark either. I agree with you, Evan. I do think that the fashion is the best part of the film, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But I do find this interesting. And I also, I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed most of this. It does have some serious missteps. It doesn't all work. But I was very, very pleasantly surprised. But I also do like the fashion the most. So it is the best part of the film for me.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any final thoughts?
No, I'm all set.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you to Cash Grab Cinema for that great question.
Thank you.
We always love your comments and questions. So please feel free to reach out to us. And Cruella is in theaters as well as on Disney Plus. So now let's do a recap. Skull the Mask.
Nope.
Would we? I love how you didn't even let me finish. You're just like, nope. I would also say skip it, at least from what I saw. Take that what you will, the first half. Evan, what would you say?
Yeah, skip.
Okay, Seance.
I'd say C.
Skippish. If it's a rainy Saturday afternoon and you feel like watching a slasher movie, okay.
Yeah, I would say watch the last maybe 15, 20 minutes because there's some really great kills there. But I think you can skip the rest. Although the last 15 minutes does have the really annoying exposition.
Yeah, you can't win them all.
Yeah, that's very true. Very, very true. Riders of Justice.
See it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. See this immediately. It's so good. And then Cruella. Dave, we know you'd say skip.
Yeah. I'd say C.
I would also say C. I mean, I don't think it's a must-see. Like, if you are also uncomfortable, like Dave and I are, about the sympathizing of a puppy murderer, then yeah, definitely skip it. You know, just look at some screenshots of the beautiful fashion. But I would say it is much more interesting than I thought it was going to be, which is something good.
Yeah. And I honestly wouldn't even say I sympathized with her. I just enjoyed watching the movie.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's a great point. I did not sympathize with her, and that's actually okay. Like, you don't need to sympathize with your protagonist. Yeah. I do feel like, though, especially because of the beginning with her childhood, they're laying it on pretty thick, so you will sympathize with her. But I do agree with you. Mm-hmm. I think they could have jettisoned that, and it would have been a better film. Because you don't need it. You can just have a really magnetic, compelling, interesting, complex villain, you know, and you don't need to sympathize with them. So great point, Evan. I'm glad you brought that up.
Thanks.
All right. Well, that's been another episode of Spoiler Piece Theater. We want to give a huge thank you to our amazing and outstanding editor, Otto Clammer. Thank you so much, Otto, for all you do for us week in and week out.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you get podcasts. You can also find us at our website, spoilerpiece.com. You can follow us on social media. We are Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook. We're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Letterboxd. You can email us, spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call
at 862-21-PEACE.
Leave us a voicemail. Let us know. Did you love Cruella? Did you hate it? Did you love Riders of Justice? Did you love the horror movies? Tell us. We want to know. We want to know what you think. We want to hear your questions, comments, feedback, all of the good things. So follow us on social media, and please be sure to reach out to us. If you like the show, please rate and review us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. You can also rate us at Apple Podcasts. That really helps us out. It helps get the word out about the show, which is always greatly appreciated. And if you really, really like the show, please consider joining our Patreon. This week, we talked about the winner of our Star Wars poll. We have monthly polls, and it was Rogue One that won. Yay. And we put out weekly bonus episodes, so you can listen to those for $5 a month. For $1 a month, you get a thank you on the show. And for $10 a month, you get to tell us what to watch each month. And we will talk about it on a bonus episode. So we want to take this moment to thank our amazing patrons.
Yeah, thank you, Bill Scahan, Sean Pensionar, Chris Jensen, Bob Chipman, Charles Nash, Davida Margolin, Zach Pigeon, Chris Wilkinson, Max Coville, Shona Glasgow, Rory Glynn, Shelley McCaskill, Mike, Lord of the Sith, Deirdre Crimmins, and Sean Harris.
Thanks so much, patrons.
Thank you.
And thank you, listeners. We appreciate you tuning in each week. Thank you so much. We love doing this, and we hope you love listening to us too. So thank you. My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld and on Instagram and Letterboxd at The Opinion S.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies for some places. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Dave Sees Movies.
And my name is Evan Crean. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living. You can follow me on Twitter and on Letterboxd as Real Recon, and that's real as in film.
Yeah,
real.
You can. Sorry.
I love that you got that in. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.